Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. We are live. We were going through some technical difficulties. I apologize about that, but we are live once again for All In on Big North. Yeah, this is going to be a great show today. So we got a lot to discuss, and first, of course, we will discuss the games that occurred last week. But the state playoffs are going to be scheduled. The bracket comes out in literally 2 weeks from now. But we have to start with the games from last week. Specifically, we start with the KJS and Ridgewood game. If you remember last week, the Maroons battled Kinnelon Jefferson Sparta United. That was on Friday. And but it was a pretty good game between these two teams, and Ridgewood just not able to get it done. It was the third loss of the year for the Maroons, a 6-3 result for KJS United, which actually is KJS's first game before tonight. I think they're playing Chatham right now. Again, not completely positive, but I believe that's who they're playing uh, right now. And they beat Ridge with the prospect. We mentioned, is Cisco going to be back in this game? If Cisco's a guy that's projected top 10 overall pick in the USHL. He not only was back, he was back in a major way. 4-point night, 4 of KJS's 6 goals, including game-winning goal, was affected by Braden Cisco. We mentioned also is the connection where his cousin is a fullback for the Kinnelon Colts football team that did so well. Cisco had 2 goals. He had 2 assists, 4 points. Caden Lombardo, who is more of a driver of the puck, had a goal as well. Eddie Brown, we mentioned him, 3-point night. He had a goal and 2 assists. Cormac Gibbons had 2 goals, as well as 2 assists from Cooper O'Neill. It was a problem for the Maroons. AJ Lazaro had a goal and 2 assists. Will Lazaro had a brace, and he also had an assist. But nobody else scored for Ridgewood except for the Lazaros. McCarthy had an assist, but he wasn't able to score a goal. Neither was Sherman. Neither was any other of the goal scorer, Lo Priori. None of those guys were able to strike the hot red for Ridgewood, and the third loss of the year, and a tremendous win for the Menin Division foe in Kinnelon Jefferson Sparta United. Ramapo, Scotch Plains Fanwood, not actually sure if that game happened. It was supposed to happen, but again, there wasn't as much pressure on it because it was an out of conference game specifically for the Raiders. And by the way, we were mentioning Ramapo and Pascack Hockey. They did beat Pascack Hockey 4-2. Didn't find out till the next morning, just the way it was centered. But yes, they did play Scotch Plains Fanwood. And boy, a big win for the Raiders out of the NJIHL in the Kelly Cup, Kelly Division. And Scotch Plains Fanwood went to 15-2-1. That was at Warnenko. And Charles Sacchetti, whose brother was a strong goal scorer for Scotch Plains Fanwood last year, he had a goal from Mavision and Berry. Berry, the power play quarterback on that defensive side. He's a very good defenseman. I've seen a lot of him. And then Sacchetti had an assist on the goal that pushed the Raiders past Ramapo. Mavision from Sacchetti, and that was a pretty big time goal as well. Sacchetti had a goal and an assist, 2 points. Mavision, as we mentioned. Luc Leheroux, 36 stops on 38 shots. by the Raiders, and Tinonegro actually faced more shots. The Raiders had 48 shots, and we said Tinonegro cannot get in a groove, or Ramapo is going to have issues in this hockey game. It's exactly what happened. Lorenzo Tinonegro was pitching a shutout, and he held it. What a game for this guy, a goaltender, I think that could play at the next level for Scotch Plains Fanwood. L'Hero played super well. I mean, 38-6 stops is not chump change in any league, but Tinonegro just faced more shots and didn't allow anything in. So that's, and they score on the power play. Really, nothing you can hang your head on in that point. I just got to be honest there. Hillsborough and WMPQPL, there was a lot of hubbub about this game, more than I thought. I thought I was kind of going on it and understanding how important the game was. And nobody else noticed. I was wrong. There was a lot of media at that game. And WMPQPL, I thought, played fairly strong for the fact of how good the Raiders are. This week they entered the top 25 in the state. I believe they're number 25th in the state of New Jersey, 11-5-2. They are playing really well. Anch Agarwal for the Raiders made it 1-0 with assists by Colton King and James Casey. Joy Paraquario was a big point guy, big maven with scoring points and scoring goals, as we mentioned. He had an assist from Timmy Ritchie. Nick Schmidt from Colin Marley ended up getting the go-ahead goal, the game-winning goal, And Schmidt also had another goal. In fact, Colin Marley with a 3-point night, all 3 assists, including a Brody Horner goal to put it away in the third period. Danny Lernerman, that's the goaltender for Hillsborough, was very strong, 24 shots allowed and 23 stops on those 24 shots, but 52 shots on goal by the Raiders offense. I mean, that was an immense amount of shots. Almost twice the amount of shots that WMPQPL had were taken by Hillsborough. And 48 stops on 52 shots is not bad at all. No, it's incredible. Matt Montana had a great game. Just the defense could not shelve the wall. The amount of shots that Hillsborough had was tremendous, and it's the reason why the Raiders won. But I think a game like that, facing a team in Public South from Skyland, a team that WPQPL had never seen and they're not going to see, I think that was a big test for them. And even though they lost, pretty good performance against a really game Hillsborough squad. Then move on to Clifton and Riverdale Westwood Emerson. This game ended in overtime. As we'll mention, Riverdale Westwood Emerson had 2 games in 4 nights at Montclair State against the 2 teams that play at Montclair State in their division, the 2 division leaders that were vying for a division title. They beat both of them, and this one was in overtime. What a game that was between Riverdale and Clifton United. Riverdale Westwood Emerson Hockey and Clifton United was I believe a 3-2 overtime victory. Decision for a wrong team in RDWE, who have really gone down the line, played some outstanding hockey as of late. They're red hot after being pretty cold early on. But it was actually a 4-3 loss in overtime, Nathan Lank had a goal for RDWE. Ryan Montana had a brace for Clifton United. Michael Montana, his brother, also had an assist. Howlerchak, who has been as hot as a meteor on Mars 2 assists as well. Nathan Lank had 2 points. Reckner, 34 stops on 37 shots. Cannataro made 28 stops on 32 RDWE shots. And in fact, RDWE was in a 2-0 hole. Got 2 goals. Walsh, then Lank from Howlerchak. Whitreich in the third, and then Jace Estrin, who has been an underrated player on their offense, runs in that second line unit. He was the hero, an overtime win. Now, because of RDWE winning on Monday, it did not matter, did not clinch the division for Fair Lawn, Dumont, Bergenfield, but they certainly helped themselves with the win. In fact, if Clifton United were able to I think draw or win, then they would actually be in the division lead right now. But big win for Estrin and RDWE, as we'll mention, the cup tournaments and all that. That's getting set. So, boy, that was a tremendous stuff shown by Riverdale Westwood Emerson and their 4-3 overtime victory, courtesy of Jace Estrin. And in the final game, this one not as close. Look, we knew it was going to be tough for Northern Highlands. I mean, it's a young team. This team's got a lot of moxie, but man, you knew it was going to be tough for them going up against like the prep school that they did match up with on Monday, yesterday, in Darien from Connecticut. And Darien took care of business. Klieger at a goal for Northern Highlands. Don't know if this recap will tell me who scored for Darien because it's not mentioned for them. The goal scored, just the Highlands goal scored. So I don't have the numbers, but Klieger had a goal. Carter Bestwick did as well. And obviously Darien just scored with tremendous offense all over the board. 7-1 win for them. And Northern Highlands, again, that their second foray against a team from Connecticut. They lost at New Canaan, which I believe was the one school that beat Del Barton this year. Hung in with them. This was not the same thing as what happened with Darien. They will face Suffern, which is the massive rivalry. Suffern has had the highest win percentage of teams in the 21st century in New York public school hockey, and Northern Highlands has that same number of percentage in New Jersey public school hockey. They both play in the same rink in Sportorama. The schools are, I think, maybe 25 minutes apart from each other. They play every year. They were supposed to play this Friday at night at a 7 o'clock night game, but they'll be playing Monday at Sportorama, Suffern and Northern Highlands. That'll be a tremendous game. I'll likely be there. So that'll be a lot of fun, no doubt about it. But that was Northern Highlands dropping to Darien School from Connecticut. Now, moving on to some of the other games, also wanted to show as we had on the ticker. We believe it's in the second period. I don't have anything on it right now, but Lakeland Hawthorne Waldwick is in Englewood in McKay Arena facing off against Tenafly Cresca Leonia. It was an 8-10 start. That is the only Big North game happening today in those teams. So now we will move on to some other things that we're going to be talking about. Starting off with the playoff brackets, if they were to start today. Now we're going to have one more of that tomorrow. or excuse me, not tomorrow. We don't do a show tomorrow. I keep saying tomorrow. I'm thinking of next week. Next week, we'll have one more show next week of the playoffs if they started. The week after next will be the unveiling of the official state playoff bracket, because the cutoff is not this coming Sunday, but Sunday, the February 15th at about, or not about, at directly noon Eastern time. Starting off the public playoffs, they were to start today. Ridgewood stays the number one seed despite their loss because of losses by some of the teams behind them. Livingston had a loss on Friday. Randolph had a loss yesterday. And those were also losses to teams that are not in the public. In fact, Randolph lost to a non-public team. They lost to St. Joseph Metuchen. Ridgewood would host Montclair as the number one seed against 16 at Sportorama, or at Ice House, just like last week. It's the same deal. This time we don't have an all Big North matchup on the deck for public. It would be Ramapo as a 9 seed traveling to Menin Arena to take on 8 seed Madison's, and they're in the same sector of the bracket as Ridgewood. 4 seed Northern Highlands, for the third time in 4 weeks, is matched up with Mendham. That's who they would play if the playoffs were to start today. Another Menin, the Menin division opponent, MCSIHL opponent, rematch of the second round last year. Northern Highlands would face Mendham at Sportorama, of course. And then the final matchup would be PCTI. They were the 11 seed. They jump up to the 10 despite their losing streak. And they would go, again, the third matchup of these Big North teams against MCSIHL opponents. Ridgewood's the only one that's not, with the NJIHL Kelly Division Montclair. And it would be another Menin team as well to boot. Madison's from the Halverson, but from the Menin Division, PCTI would also travel to Menin Arena to take on 8 seed Chatham. That would be a very interesting game. Chatham beat Pope John, kind of revenge for a game 2 years ago where they lost at the buzzer. They beat them last night. They've also beaten very good Ridge. So, that would be a tough matchup for PCTI, but they would travel, a young team would travel to a fairly young Chatham squad at Menin Arena in Morris Plains. Now we'll move on to the other more consolidated bracket, if I will, if it's here, and of course it's not, which means I have to add it. Give me a second. Let me make sure I have it. I should, but that is what the bracket would look like if the playoffs and so I'm going to go ahead and add the C, which is the game in the matchup we were mentioning with the co-ops. Not as many co-op teams as before. As last because Tenafly Cresco Leonia is not in it as the 16 seed, and there are a couple of non-Big North all matchups. Remember last time there were Big North in every bracket. Not the same thing here, but Wayne Hockey stays as the number one seed. They're 14-4-1. They're a tremendous team, and for the third time in 4 weeks, they would host Nutley, Columbia, Bloomfield. Although I kind of believe Tenafly Cresco Leonia should be in that spot. Maybe give some bias, okay, but also Nutley, Columbia, Bloomfield faced a team that's also kind of low down on the list. They're at 10th, and that's Verona Glen Ridge, and they lost to them last night 10-0. So I don't necessarily know about that, but that's also Tenafly Crescent Leonia's scores didn't come in, and they played Lakeland, Hawthorne, Walwick. They also lost to Lakeland. Not many teams have. So if they win that game tonight, I think that can put them back into the 16 spot. But right now, it is Nutley, Columbia, Bloomfield. They would travel to Ice Vault, take on Wayne Hockey at the Ice Vault in Wayne. This is an all Big North matchup, though. There is one, and that would be a really interesting one between two teams that are right around each other in rankings and everything else. They're close to each other in seeds in the cups, and this would be an intriguing matchup where you'd be like, oh, somebody's got to lose in the first round. That's crazy, but it would have to happen if the playoffs were to start today, and that would be at the Palisades Mall in New York, and it would be Old Tappan, Demorest, New Milford hosting Paramus, Mahwah, Lyndhurst at the mall. That would be a pretty epic game. I actually got the logo instead of Paramus logo. I was able to find that. Morris Knolls, Morris Hills, and I remember when we started the show, were out of a playoff spot. They now have found themselves all the way up to the number 4 seed, and that's partly because teams are starting to – the strength of schedule is starting to affect the PowerPoints. So you'll see Parsippany has dropped down despite the fact they only have 3 losses because a lot of the team's strength of schedule has lowered them. And despite the loss by Knowles Hills, the strength of schedule of playing a Randolph, playing a Morristown Beard, which has really helped all the men in the team's strength of schedule because of how strong Morristown Beard is. In fact, Morristown Beard played today against St. Joe's. They did lose. I was unsure if they had won or lost. But that's kind of what makes it really interesting. And Knowles Hills is the 4 seed. They would host 13 seed Fairlawn Dumont Bergenfield. So Fairlawn Dumont Bergenfield would travel to Menin Arena to take on Knowles Hills. Again, I think that's a little low, but okay. Mohoha, another game in Menin Arena. Mount Olive, Hopatcong, Hackettstown, out from the Halverson division in the MCSIHL. They would host West Milford, Pequannock, Pompton Lakes. That would be quite interesting from Menin Arena. Pascack Hockey, another all Big North matchup, and that's partly why you don't see as many matchups because you have a bunch of Big North teams playing each other. This would be at Sportorama, and it would be Pascack Hockey hosting Clifton United. Clifton, Cedar Grove, Passaic Valley, Cedar Grove, against Pascack Park Ridge Hockey, and that would be out at Sportorama in Monsey, New York. It would be a great matchup as the 3 and 14 seed. And then as the 6 and the 11, again, Riverdale Westwood Emerson, a team that was on the fringes, they are now hosting a playoff game, and it would be the other game if the playoffs started today in Ice House, along with Ridgewood's matchup against 16 seed Montclair. It would be 6 seed Riverdale Westwood Emerson, this time hosting an MCSIHL team. They would host Haas-Charette division leader Parpuck, or Parsippany Regional, however you'd like to call them, the co-op of Parsippany High School and Parsippany Hills at the Ice House in Hackensack. So that would be good. That'd be a big game. And now we're going to move over to the one graphic actually that we are going to use twice today. One for our picks, and now to mention it, starting off with the Gold Cup. And this is not if the Gold Cup started today. This is the final seedings. This is the official seedings of the tournament. Now, the tournament is starting out later on this week, I believe on Friday. Yes, on Friday. The Gold and the Silver Cup, the Big North Gold Cup, the Big North Silver Cup. I believe all of the games are at Ice Vault, even though like West Milford, Pequannock, Pompton Lakes playing Ridgewood, but I believe they're all at Ice Vault. I am not sure about that. Again, figure that out as that goes along. Ice does have 3 different rinks, but I'm not sure how much that's going to hold. But Ridgewood, number 1 seed, will host, will host, and all these games are going on Friday, as early as 3:45 and as late as I think 9 o'clock. Ridgewood is hosting West Milford, Pequannock, Pompton Lakes, so I know a lot of the WPQPL people wanted them to be a high seed in the Silver Cup, but they do jump in as an 8 seed. They're the defending Silver Cup champs. They will not get to, and that's another part. That's another reason why I think they were annoyed about it. They wanted to defend their Silver Cup title, and they won't get to. They're in the Gold Cup, the higher cup, and as the 8 seed facing a team they've already faced that they lost 11-1 earlier this year to, that being Ridgewood. And they almost survived the whole game before the mercy rule, but the goal for about 39 seconds left early in the year by the Maroons over WPQPL. So Ridgewood will face WPQPL in the first round. Ramapo will host Pascack. Pascack drops to a 5 thanks to a Ramapo win against them. Also, Pascack dropped to Paramus, Mahwah, Lyndhurst. Mahwah. The Raiders hosting Pascack be quite interesting. They've got the head-to-head win as well, which gives them last shift and ensures that this game definitely, if all the games are not necessarily the Ice Vault, this will be because they're the home team. And they would host Pascack Hockey, Pascack Park Ridge. Great game. We'll talk about it later, of course. 3 seed Wayne Hockey, of course, that'll definitely be at the Ice Vault as well. They'll host 6 seed Fairlawn Dumont Bergenfield. And Fairlawn Dumont Bergenfield snuck up to the Gold Cup. And this was a surprising one. Not that Highlands is the 2 seed. A lot of people saw that. I saw that. But Riverdale Westwood Emerson, who, if you remember 3 weeks ago, and a lot could change in a day, but still, 3 weeks ago, was a 7 seed if the Cups had started in the Silver Cup. They jump all the way to a 7 seed in the Gold Cup. It's going to be tough for them. Kind of this year's, I guess you could say, this year's Ramsey Indian Hills. That team that's got moxie, they're tough, but they will face Northern Highlands, and that will be a very interesting game. Quite intriguing, no doubt about that. And now we're going to move on to the Silver Cup, if that is not the right thing. We were on that already. Should have the Silver Cup here. Give me 1 second. Here it is. On to the Silver Cup. Old Tappan, Demorest, New Milford, after denying a chance to be in the Gold Cup. Last year they weren't, and they were close this year, but they dropped to the Silver Cup, but they're a number 1 seed. They had a good year last year. I think they were a very high seed in the Silver Cup as well and lost early. They will face Lakeland, Hawthorne, Waldwick. Now remember, despite their youth, Lakeland, Hawthorne, Waldwick was a low seed last year in the bracket and went all the way to the Silver Cup final. They lost to West Milford, Pequannock, Pompton Lakes, who are not there anymore. So, of course, that's interesting. The only team that made a final that's still in the Silver Cup bracket. They'll face Old Tappan, Demorest, New Milford. Clifton United is a 4 seed. They would host 5 seed Tenafly, Cresskill, Leonia. 3 seed PCTI. You notice they weren't in the Gold Cup because of some of their losses, like their blowout loss to the Paramus tryout. They dropped to a 3 seed. They would host 6 seed Ramsey Indian Hills. And Paramus, Mahwah, man, this team jumps up to a 2 seed. They had a chance to even get in the Gold Cup, just not enough wins. But they go to the 2 seed. But remember, we've seen a lot of upsets. So a lot of upsets last year in the Silver Cup. And they're facing a Paramus Catholic team that, because of disqualifications due to unsportsmanlike conduct, everything else, in the non-public bracket to the Red Bank Catholic tri-op, it's with Donovan Catholic, St. Rose and Donovan Catholic, and Paul VI. Because of that, instead of being 4 spots outside of a playoff spot, they are only 2 spots outside of a playoff spot. unless of course they do buys. We're not sure exactly how non-public will do that, but we think they are two spots outside of a playoff spot. The upsets are abound. If they're going to get to the postseason, they're going to have to run the table. And remember, Paramus Catholic beat the Paramus Triop. So in the Battle of Paramus, add Mahwah and Lyndhurst to it as well. What a game that will be. That game intrigues me much because you've got a Paladins team that already has beaten this Paramus team. Yes, I understand it's different, but they have beaten them. So that could be a team. That could be that Paladins team's interesting because you never know how PCTI is going to play. They're a young team as well. Ramsey Indian Hills has some elite goal scoring, and I believe Paramus Catholic beat Ramsey Indian Hills as well. So you could very much have a Paramus Catholic team that not a lot of people are looking at go all the way to the final of the Silver Cup, and when it's all said and done, gets it done and gets to the state playoffs. Now, they likely would have to face a team like St. Joe's or Mo Beard or Don Bosco, whatever that is. But still, this could be a reclamation project end of the year for this young Paramus Catholic squad. Keep an eye on them. Keep an eye on Paladins. They're interesting. They are interesting in that bracket. So from that, and we'll go back to that for our games. And we're not going to do any non-cup games. We're going to be predicting all of the cup games. And we will now be moving on to the top 10 teams in the conference. Top 10, number 1, Ridgewood. Well, what can you say? They lose to KJS, but they take care of business on Sunday against Wayne Hockey. We'll talk about them in the division. Number 1 seed for a reason. 15-3. Top 15 team in the state. I mean, they're a really, really strong team, as we know. Number 2, Pascack Hockey. Yes, they have lost a couple of games, but they did, after the Ramapo loss, they did have a very good win against Summit on the road in Union in a rink that is literally behind a strip mall. It's actually crazy. One of the few rinks I had never gone to in North Jersey. I got to see that. And Pascack won that game. Yes, they lost to the Paramus Triop, but it was a close game. And the Paramus Triop has been scary good. Number 3 is Northern Highlands. Yes, their strength of schedule by far is the best in this conference. It might be the best by a public school in the entire state of New Jersey. And honestly, it probably is. But they did lose. They had one game through a whole week span, and they lost it by 6 goals. I understand what a tough team that they played, but still. 4th is Wayne Hockey, 14 wins. What a season they're having. In fact, not only that, but here's the really interesting thing, is that 50% of all of their losses have come in their division. And they have not lost to a team outside of their conference. Wayne has been really, really elite as things have gone. Old Tappan, Demarest New Milford, and Ridgewood, and Pascack, I believe, are their only out-of-divisional losses. Ramapo, 5th. Ramapo did beat Wayne, but they had another game against Wayne we'll mention soon. There they lost to Wayne. And Ramapo drops at 5. Old Tappan, I think we're dropping them a little bit lower, but they just have one more win than Riverdale and Paramus, so I just say stick them at 6, but it's close. It's close for sure. I mean, Riverdale, Westwood Emerson's in the Gold Cup, Old Tappan's in the Silver, Paramus is right behind them in the Silver, but put Riverdale, Westwood Emerson at 7. Boy, they've been strong. Win over Fairlawn, Dumont, Bergenfield. They got the win over Pascack. They've got a win. They got a win over Clifton United. Big time team right now. They're flowing. Hallerjack is as hot as anything, as we mentioned. Paramus, Mawa Linders, Mawa. Man, this team, boy, they're coming up with big win after big win. Win over PCTI. They won against Ramapo last week. But a week before that. They also had a win against Pascack on Sunday. Yes, they have a couple of losses to Ramsey Indian Hills and Paramus Catholic that aren't the best, but their wins, they are statement wins, and they got a Prudential Center game actually coming up against, I want to say Park Regional. I know it's an MCSA IHL squad. Fairlawn Dumont Bergenfield, who will meet some super strong teams like Wayne coming up as well. They are 9th. Yeah, they did lose to Riverdale Westwood Emerson, so they're dropped down at 9, despite the fact, interestingly enough, that they can clinch their division and they're higher up in the division than Riverdale Westwood Emerson. In fact, RDWE, yet they've already been eliminated the last couple of weeks from winning their division. PCTI is 10th. They were close to being out. I mean, PCTI has been, they're a strong team, but they have struggled with their youth. I mean, you've got a guy in Braden Shamble who's logging the minutes, who's become one of the leaders of the team. He's only a freshman. They graduated a lot. It's been tough to replace it, but this team has done their job facing very strong competition. And now we move on. As we were mentioning the top 5, to the divisions. Of course, we're going to go to that, starting with, as we always start, with the Freedom. Now, you'll notice you do not have those things dialed up when it comes to divisional, how the division can be won, because this week, due to the cups and everything else, there are no divisions that can be won this week. In fact, as of today, these are not only the 2 divisions left in the conference in the Freedom and the Patriot, these are the only 2 divisions remaining in all of New Jersey hockey that can be won that are not cup reliant, like the Menin or the McGinnis or I don't know. There's a couple others that are like that, the NJHL and the MCSIHL. It's not like that where it's the cup tournament and their divisions can't be. There's no regular season real division winner. There's 1 seeds, but no regular season division winner. You got to win the cup to win your division. Big North is not like that, as we know. Silver Cup and Gold Cup. There are teams from multiple divisions in the cups. So, but when you come, and then there are conferences like the Skyland, which don't have a division. Same thing with the GMC. So when it comes down to it, only 2 divisions left that don't have cups deciding their divisions, and both of them are in this conference. Both of them we're going to talk about, and they cannot be clinched today. In fact, I believe the next, I want to say, is the 11th. Yes, is Wednesday, next Wednesday. It's a week from tomorrow. So after our show, we'll talk about it next show. Tenafly Cresca plays Northern Highlands. If Northern Highlands loses or draws, I think because of no, not necessarily loses or draws. If they lose, they're out of divisional contention. If they draw and Pascack draws on the 17th, they're out, and obviously Pascack wins. But a loss by Highlands to Tenafly Cresca Leonia next week would eliminate Highlands from the division, and it would grant the Freedom to Pascack Park Ridge. So there is that, but that's. But we'll talk more about that next week. Obviously, it can't be decided this week. Pascack Park Ridge is 11-5. Northern Highland is 8-1. Pascack, we don't see a lot of games on their schedule right now. Right now, just Ramapo, which they play on Friday in the Big North Gold Cup, and Tenafly Cresca Leonia. So far, it would be only at the most 4 games that they would have played. Now, they may book one possibly next weekend to gain more power points. There's a possibility. In fact, I think if they do that, they should probably book Wayne if it's possible next weekend, because Wayne is the number 1 seed in North Co-op. So if they beat Wayne and they win the majority of the games, even if they lose to like a Ridgewood or a Highlands, I think they would be in prime position to get the number 1 seed like last year. But we'll see. There aren't a lot of games left, and they would likely have 2 the most that are regular season games. So not many games for them. Not the same deal for Northern Highlands. Highlanders have a bunch more regular season games, as well as their first round tournament game against Riverdale Westwood Emerson, also in the Gold Cup. A team that they narrowly beat 2-1 earlier this year. They've got Westfield tomorrow at Warnanko. We mentioned the massive rivalry against Suffern. Tenafly Cresca Leonia, their final divisional game. And they also play Ramsey Indian Hills at, I think, the Icefall. Yeah, at the Icefall. So they've got a slew of more games, but there you go. Obviously, Ultapan, Demers, New Milford, they have finished divisional play. In fact, they're the only team that has finished divisional play so far. Tenafly listed at 0-5, though that is not correct. I believe they are 0-4, because I know that Tenafly Cresca Leonia has 2 more games coming up. So that would not make sense for them to be 0-5. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, they are clearly 0-4 in their division. They have Clifton United coming up on Friday in divisional play. But that is kind of how that goes. So, yeah, Pascack 11-5. So that's kind of how that division would go. In the Freedom division, with Pascack in the driver's seat. Now we move over to the Stars division. So we always go Stars, then Patriot, and then Stripes. Well, the Stars division, in 4th place PCTI, 7-12-1. In fact, all teams have finished divisional play. Ramapo and Wayne, I forgot these teams. I forgot to switch the logos. Ramapo is up at second, despite the fact they're 10-8, and Wayne is 14-4. Wayne is 2-3-1 in their division, whereas Ramapo is 3-3 in their division. Ridgewood is 15-3, and Ramapo, they beat Pascack. Remember, they beat Pascack last week, and that was kind of that's a kind of a big thing. But they needed that big game against Wayne, and they were pretty much the dominant team in the game. But Wayne came back, made some really good kills, and their power play started to shine. And Scott Stansfield had a big goal, and then Nate Ashkenazi was snake bitten in the game. Comes by, winds around, and slams the puck. Unstoppable by Luc Leherreau. And not only did it give Wayne the win, it ended Ramapo's miraculous drive for a division, despite Ridgewood's loss 2 days after. Ridgewood are your 2026 Big North champions with a repeat from last year. Congratulations to Ridgewood. Congratulations to the Maroons fans, the students, all of that. And, of course, the hockey team, the coaching staff, and administrators. They win the 2026 Stars division. It had been a while since we saw a division title, but Ridgewood wins the second of the 4 divisions off of the Wayne win. And they repaid Wayne for helping them win the division by taking care of Wayne and beating them on Sunday. And not only that, but that win by the Maroons over Wayne after they had already won the division, just like West Milford, Pequannock, Pompton Lakes, and which is impossible to see in the other 2 divisions, finishes a clean sweep of the division, a 6-0 divisional record by the Maroons. Wins over Ramapo, Wayne, and PCTI, Passaic County Technical Institute. The other 2 divisions, as we mentioned, that is unable to happen. A clean sweep is not able to be seen, but Ridgewood took care of business. And now we'll move over to the Stripes division. Bit of a change in the Stripes division with seeding, but everybody is also done with divisional play. West Milford, Pequannock, Pompton Lakes, as we've known for weeks now, they've already won their division. They're 9-10, 6-0 split. But Ramsey Indian Hills will finish divisions, as this is the second division along with the Stars. It's already been won to finish divisional play. There is 1 divisional game coming up in the Patriot we'll mention, and there are 2 divisional games coming up in the Freedom. One which is next week, of course. But a 4-2 record finishing off in the division for Ramsey Indian Hills. Surprisingly, 4 of the 9 losses, which is 45% of their losses by Paramus, Ernst Mawa, as good as they've been, have been all in the division. 2 losses to West Milford, Pequannock, Pompton Lakes, and I believe they lost both the Ramsey Indian Hills as well, which is why Ramsey Indian Hills, with only 6 wins, is set to be second in the Stripes division. And Lakeland, Hawthorne, Waldwick, they're winless in the division. 6 losses. And that's actually kind of interesting for Ramsey Indian Hills, is they got season swept by West Milford, Pequannock, Pompton Lakes, but they swept the Paramus Tri-Op and they swept the Lakeland Tri-Op. And that's what the Stripes division looks like. And that we'll show it next week, obviously, until the regular season ends. We'll keep showing the divisions. But the standings are not going to change, just like with the Stars. The only thing that's going to change, well, the Stars, I've changed the logos, but the other thing that's going to change maybe are the records, but the standings are not going to change at all. That in the Stripes division. And now we move on to the Freedom division. This has only 1 game left. It was supposed to occur the Monday before last show, but obviously we mentioned that got snowed out. That Freedom, that is not the Patriot division. That was the Freedom division. We mentioned that. And the Patriot division, right now, it's been topsy-turvy. Fairlawn-Dumont, Bergenfield. They only lead by points in 12 points over the 10 points for Clifton United. But despite the fact that actually they have the third worst record in the division, they lead because they only have one loss, which was to Riverdale Westwood Emerson, clean swept Paramus Catholic, and beat Clifton United 7-6 earlier in the year. 8-9-1. Clifton United is second, and Riverdale Westwood Emerson third at 9-7-1. Despite the best record in the division, they are and one of two teams that's in the Gold Cup. They are ineligible to win the division. Paramus Catholic's been ineligible for a while now. 4-12 on fourth place. Now, what's going to happen? Now, the game got moved to the 16th. That is the Monday effect. It's the day right after the cutoff before the seeding. That will occur. And interestingly, I think they would have probably rather had it before the cutoff. Now, could that move to next Saturday? Perhaps, but I don't think it will. I think that would probably be better for both these teams. But right now, it's set at Monday the 16th. Winner of that game, how it goes. Fairlawn Dumont Bergenfield, tie or wins the division. Easy as that. Clifton United, if they win, it does not necessarily win the division because of wins and losses. Now, Clifton United have more games to help their wins or hurt their losses. And, of course, the cups are in fact, the cups are all going to be done before that point, but those games don't count because they're not regular season games. Of course, which basically drops Clifton United to 8-8, essentially, when you talk about wins and losses, because remember, you don't count the wins, the wins and the losses in the Passaic County tournament as much. To my knowledge, though, actually they may count those. No, yeah, that's right. They do count those tournament games, but it really wouldn't be much of a difference, of course, as we go along. But Clifton United, they're in second, and again, a win, depending on what happens with record, could win them the division. We'll have to wait till the end of the regular season for that. But if Fairlawn Dumont Bergenfield ties, that would be that as well. Of course, we'll talk more about that next week because that division can be decided not this coming Monday, but next Monday, which technically falls in the same week period because we stream on Tuesdays. But there you go with the divisions. And to rankings here. And then we will have our predictions going into all the cup games. So we will start with top 10. Let's see what this one is. It is top 10 point leaders. That's fine. Yep. Here, all in on Big North Hockey. This has been a great night tonight, of course. William Park, 61 points, specifically from Demarest, from Old Tappan, Demarest, New Milford. Boy, talk about points. Over 60 is tremendous for a defenseman who is very close to our all-in on Big North defensive player of the year, depending on how the playoffs go and everything else. AJ Lasaro with C points. Well, I mean, AJ Lasaro, 60 points. That's tremendous out of Ridgewood. Jarbar Aquario's got 57 points from Pequannock, third in the conference. Boy, he can pass the puck. He can score goals. Great, big-time goal scorer, and he could set up guys. His teammate, Tim Ritchie from Pompton Lakes, from West Milford, Pequannock, Pompton Lakes, with 53 points. Tied with him also in fifth place is Scotty Stansfield. Boy, was he tremendous in that game we mentioned in their win over Ramapo. 53 points specifically from Wayne Hills, the Wayne Hills Patriots, but from Wayne Hockey. Sixth is Dylan Ferlanti, 51 points from Fairlawn Dumont Bergenfield. Most of those are goals, but still, he's a tremendous scorer. Colton Lathrop, the other of the two-headed Cerebus of Old Tappan, Demorest, New Milford. This kid specifically from Old Tappan, a young man, 48 points for Colton. Tremendous stuff. Will Lassaro, the brother of AJ Lassaro, the younger brother, with 48 points, one of the most skilled players in the country and the state. And yes, country. He's that good. Chase Lavelle with 46 points, just like Dylan Ferlanti. Half of those are goals, but still, what a player is. Actually, more than half of those are goals. What a player from Ramsey, Indian Hill, specifically from Ramsey. And from Cedar Grove at Clifton United, Clifton, Cedar Grove, and Passaic Valley, Ryan Montana with 44 points. Tremendous for the Cedar Grove Panther there on a top 10 in points. Now we move over to top 10 rankings in assists. Number one, just like he was in points, is William Park, the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year in the Big North. 41 assists from Old Tappan, Demorest, New Milford. 41 apples is tremendous. Call Johnny Appleseed and shake the orchards. That's a ton of apples. Joey Barquario, 38 assists, also a point maven. We mentioned him from Pequannock, West Milford, Pequannock, Pompton Lakes. And Scotty Stansfield jumps all the way up to number 3. 30 assists from Wayne Hills for Wayne Hockey. Colton Lathrop's fourth, 29 assists from Old Tappan, specifically Old Tappan, Demorest, New Milford. AJ Lassaro's got 27 assists. Great passer that he is. Owen Dargan, sixth, with 26 assists from Pascack Park Ridge Hockey. Pascack Valley, Pascack Hills, Park Ridge, of course. Devin Friedman from Northern Highlands. He's got 25 assists. Friedman's a net front presence. I liken him to the Big North version of Tomasz Holmstrom. He can jam in front. Great player, but he's good on the wings as well, of course. Timmy Ritchie, not as high as he was in points, but 25 assists, eighth, as he matches Davin Friedman, 25 assists. And behind him, Fairlawn Dumont Bergenfield's Devin Bittner with 25 assists. And we do not see his teammate Dylan Ferlanti, as he was out of the point scoring and assist offensive stat pages. He was in goals and points for all of the weeks that we had covered, except for last week. Will Lassaro jumps back in, 24 assists to finish in a final spot with 10th in Big North Hockey with assists. So that's points and assists. Let's move on to goals. Then we'll go to the goaltender stats. Actually, no, let's go to the goaltender stats. Particularly this one. This one's interesting. Save percentage. Boys, we mentioned save percentage. It has to do with your shots against and the saves that you have. Well, Ramapo, who had not played their backup goaltender all year long, played Paxton Claus in the game against Pascack, and Paxton Claus was prolific and didn't face a lot of shots by Pascack Park Ridge. So Paxton Claus, a goaltender that had not played all year, jumps up to number 1 in the conference currently in save percentage. How ridiculous is that? But this seems to be the guy. He's going to be the future. Le Haro will be graduating. So to bring in a guy like Paxton Claus, be a goaltender that you can trust if you're the Raiders. Second is Lucas Egan. He jumps up with a 929 save percentage from Wayne Valley. We mentioned we thought that the save percentages were going to continue to go down as goals were needed going to the playoffs. Well, the goaltenders found their edge this week for sure. August Reckner from Westwood, Riverdale Westwood Emerson specifically, in third with a 919, which is the same save percentage he had last week. Amazing that he holds that with the amount of games that they've had over the last couple of days. Anthony Bennett with a 916 spot for Fairlawn Dumont Bergenfield from Fairlawn. And you see a lot of those goaltenders. Matthew Kaimoff goes up to fifth with 912 save percentage from Northern Highlands. Matt Montana with a 910 save percentage from West Milford, Pequannock, Pompton Lakes. Colin Garcia at seventh with a 909, another Fairlawn Dumont Bergenfield Fairlawn product. Tyler Rothschild from Pascack Hills, also Pascack Hills golfer, and a strong player. He has a 907 save percentage from Pascack Park Ridge hockey. Jack Feinstein, the third and final Fairlawn Dumont Bergenfield goaltender, the starter, with a 906 save percentage, and a 10th is Luc Leheroux, 906 save percentage, the starting goaltender for the Ramapo Raiders. Now we'll go back to goals, if we can. There we go. It's loading. AJ Lassaro takes the lead in goals in the Big North. He's got 34 tallies. How are you doing, Josh? Josh, a good friend of mine, a big proponent of volleyball and girls basketball, though he does cover, I don't say cover, but he does follow a lot of hockey. Randolph guy, obviously not going to be talking about Randolph, but we do talk about teams that Randolph has played. Team that Randolph beat, actually, Northern Highlands. But we'll move back into it. AJ Lassaro, 34 goals. Second place is Chase Lavelle. And we're nearing the end of the show, Josh, but we're going to go into all of the cup predictions in the first round. They're all starting on Friday. The gold and the silver cup, we'll explain that in a second. 34 goals for AJ Lassaro. He's in first place. In second place is Chase Lavelle. He's got 30 goals from Ramsey Indian Hills, specifically from Ramsey. Lavelle, despite the struggles, only a sophomore. Boy, has he been a super strong player offensively. Dylan Ferlanti drops to third with 29 goals from Fairlawn Dumont Bergenfield. Not the highest scoring week for him, but he's still a strong player. Ryan Montana from Cedar Grove and Clifton United specifically stays in the top four, 28 goals. Timothy Ritchie, same amount of goals. He's fifth. West Milford, Pequannock, Pompton Lakes, specifically from Pompton Lakes. AJ Lassaro's younger brother, Will Lassaro, with 24 goals. Big North is strong. Can't wait for Randolph to beat Highlands. Right now, we actually did it, the playoff bracket. If it was to start today, the playoff bracket officially is in 2 weeks. Is going to be unveiled in 2 weeks. Right now, Northern Highlands and Randolph are in opposite sides of the bracket. Northern Highlands is the number 4 seed, and Randolph is the number 2. So they would meet in Menin Arena in a rematch, actually, of 2 years ago. If they were to meet, they would rematch in Menin Arena for a rematch of 2 years ago in the sectional final, if the playoffs were to start today. I mean, we still have time to go, but that's how that works. Will Lassaro, 24 goals, mentioned a younger brother of AJ Lassaro, only 10 under his older brother. The senior, Scott Stansfield, will be great as a senior. And junior next year, too, unless he goes to the OHL or USHL or whatever. Scotty Stansfield, 23 goals for Wayne Hockey, specifically also from Wayne Hills, who mentioned him. Troy Knaus, not in the assist or points level, but he's got 21 goals from Tenafly, Cresca-Leonia, specifically from Tenafly. His older brother, Devin, was a great goal scorer, and Troy carries the flame. Colton Lathrop, 20 goals from Old Tappan, Demorest, New Milford, specifically from Old Tappan. And Joey Baraquario, the only player that doesn't have 20 goals, ends the list with 19 goals from West Milford, Pequannock, Pompton Lakes, from Pequannock. Well, now we move in to the saves mark. Should be here. Final mark, and that is Matt Montana with 679 stops for West Milford, Pequannock, Pompton Lakes in the season alone. He's been tremendous. And we've got a great goaltending of goaltenders all around the state. Obviously, MCSIHL, and if you heard about Klaus Harthaus, who his career, only a sophomore, I believe has 1,400 or 1,500 saves already. He had a 104 save night, breaking the state record for most saves in a game. He's likely going to break the record of 3,000, but there's some great goaltenders in the Big North as well. Lucas Egan has 545 stops for Wayne Hockey, specifically from Wayne Valley. Another golfer, too. It's kind of cool to see that from the green on the ice. Thomas Cannataro was in second. He drops to third with 514 stops from Clifton United, specifically from Cedar Grove. Jack Feinstein, 463 stops, the starter for Fairlawn Newmont Bergenfield. Luc Leheroux, 2 behind him with 461 stops from Ramapo. In sixth is Tyler Rothschild, the second golfer, 439 stops from Pascack Hills with Pascack Park Ridge Hockey. Dan Stolars, the freshman, drops to seventh with 433 stops. Oliver Grant rises to eighth with 417 stops. Nick Stellenesis rises with 401 stops in ninth. And the only goaltender who does not have 400 stops with 384 saves is Matthew Kaimoff, the super sophomore from Northern Highlands, who is in 10th in the Big North when it comes to saves. And now we'll go on to our final trajectory today, which is our predictions of the Cups, specifically the Silver Cup. And we will have predictions of the semifinals next week as well, because the semifinals, we believe, will be Wednesday. It's the day after. Old Tappan, Demarest, New Milford hosting Lakeland, Hawthorne, Waldwick. Well, Lakeland, Hawthorne, Waldwick is still the runner-ups from last year. That is something you have to see about. The Gold Cup finalist was the West Milford team. Now, if Josh is still here, I actually wanted to mention this because this is different from, as he is more knowledgeable of the MCSIHL, how those cups work. The MCSIHL cups, it depends on your divisional record, and you have to be top 4, top 5, or top 6, depending on how many teams are in your division. The stronger divisions have less, and your division is going to have the cup. There's no regular season division title. The Big North is different. The divisions are not necessarily in the same cups. There are I see 4 different divisions represented in this cup. In the Silver Cup, it's based off of strength and schedule and head-to-head on teams. What division you're in, if you win the division, doesn't always have to do with what cup you're in. But the Gold Cup is the highest. There are 16 teams in the North. 8 of them, the top 8, go into the Gold Cup. The bottom 8 go into the Silver Cup, where the Silver Cup right now, Old Tappan, Demarest, New Milford, is the number 1 seed against Lakeland, Hawthorne, Waldwick. As we mentioned, Lakeland, Hawthorne, Waldwick, they're the runner-ups, but they're 3-4 with 15. They've struggled. I do think their youth is going to be a bit of an issue. I believe they actually beat Old Tappan Triop last year in the tournament. They're going to get revenge. 8-2. Old Tappan, Demarest, New Milford in this one. Moving on to the semifinals. Clifton United and Tenafly Kreska Leonia. Well, intriguing game here between TCL and CU. This is kind of tough to call. Clifton United have had their moments, but defensively, they've had some struggles to close out games. And Tenafly Kreska Leonia has really been searching for that big win. They don't have a lot of good win strength to schedule, and Clifton United's 14th in Co-op North. Tenafly Kreska's just outside. Leonia's just outside. TCL's just outside. They want to get in to the playoffs. This would be big, and I think they'll win. 6-5 in overtime. TCL beats Clifton United, and Canals has a 5-goal night. PCTI and Ramsey Indian Hills, this is an interesting one. There is a bona fide goal scorer in Chase Lavelle, and this is a team that's battled some super tough opponents like Ridgewood. PCTI has been a cold team. They've lost to Pramis Linners Mawa. I mean, they've lost to some weaker teams, also some good teams. They are young. They have had some offensive struggles. And Ramsey Indian Hills always seems to be interesting in these tournaments. This is their first tournament of the year, and it could be their last tournament of the year as well. They declined, in particular, they weren't invited to really get into the Bergen County tournament, unlike last year. They were not able to enter. They may not be able to enter the state playoffs. I believe they're 19th in North Co-op. They're going to need wins to get there in what could be their first and only tournament of the year. I have them winning 4-2. Lavelle has 2. Ramsey Indian Hills shocks PCTI and moves on. And this is the one that intrigues me. Paramus Lyndhurst Mahwah, I think right now, pound for pound, is the best team in this bracket. But boy, that Paramus Catholic team's interesting. And they remind me of the Ramsey Indian, or the Lakeland Hawthorne Waldwick last year as a low seed, that they're 2 spots out of a playoff spot in Public North. Yes, they only have 4 wins, but they've beaten the Paramus team. They competed with PCTI. They beat Ramsey Indian Hills. They had a really good game against Tenafly Cresco Leonia. It's up there for the taking. 6-3 Paramus Lyndhurst Mahwah, but man, I can see the Paladins winning. And I can see them going to the final. I really can. I don't think they will. I don't think they're even getting out of the first round. But I could be wrong before. And if the Paramus Catholic fans want to come after me and say, see, you doubted us, see what happened, I'll take it. But I don't think they will win this game. 6-3, Paramus Lyndhurst Mahwah. Excuse me. Now the final bracket to go over. And that being the Gold Cup. We're going to work our way backwards this time. I think that could be interesting. 2-seed Ridgewood against 7-seed Riverdale Westwood Emerson. Well, the fact that Riverdale Westwood Emerson against a Northern Highlands team that had their mojo and were flying only lost by 1. Back when Riverdale Westwood Emerson was still struggling to get out of their own way is an interesting caveat here. The fact that Highlands is cold and Riverdale Westwood Emerson is volcanically hot could prove to be an intriguing game. I do think it's going to be more of a defensive game, and I do think Highlands is going to take care of business. 4-1. 4-1. 4-1 Highlands. That's what I think. Barada will have a goal and 2 assists. Wayne Hockey against Fairlawn Dumont Bergenfield. Well, Fairlawn Dumont Bergenfield have had some interesting wins. They've had a good year, but Wayne Hockey has just been so good, especially out of their division. They don't have to face a divisional opponent until the final, and that being Ramapo, a team that they've already beaten. I think Wayne Hockey's going to take care of business. I think this thing could be I really think this thing could be one of those games that you think is going to be defensive with the goaltending because, Bernstein and Egan are tremendous, or Feinstein and Egan are tremendous, but I think it's going to turn to the opposite of that. 7-3 Wayne Hockey. Or it's going to be 8-2. 8-2 Wayne Hockey. Yeah, I think it's going to be that kind of offensive onslaught. Ramapo and Pascack. Ooh, got a Pascack team that has had some offensive woes the last couple games, going up against a Ramapo team that they fought. And Ramapo, again, has had their issues in tournaments. And I think it's that kind of high-profile game where the Raiders start strong and can't finish. 3-2, Pascack, Park Ridge eliminates Ramapo. And then we got Ridgewood and West Milford, Pequannock, Pompton Lakes. Listen, it's been a tough team, tough season for them. I don't think WPQPL loses 11-1 like they did the last time these two teams met. But I don't think they win, and I don't think it's particularly close. 6-2 Maroons. I have advancing to the second round. So we'll have our semifinals picks next week. Probably have the more graphics for that, as those are only going to be actually 4 games, interestingly enough. But boy, that's going to be fun. We got a lot coming up next week. Next week is the final week before not for the end of the regular season. There's one more week after that, but it'll be the final week before the official state playoffs are set. It will be the final week of the Gold and Silver Cups. The semifinals will be on Wednesday. I believe the finals will be on Friday, although they might even have them later on that day. Not positive. That will be a ton of fun for the Cups. I'm very excited, very intrigued. But yes, that will be interesting, and we'll talk more about that. Also, as we mentioned, next week, the final 2 divisions have chances to be clinched. Very much so. And if 1 or 2 of them aren't clinched, we can talk about some of the scenarios that will move on. There's a high chance that the Freedom isn't clinched because Northern Highlands is highly expected to beat Tenafly Cresco Leonia, and if they are, then we have to wait another week for, I believe, another week. Then we would wait another week, although that Tenafly Cresco Leonia PASCAC game would be going on the same day. Before we go, let's just see if did we get a score yet. Lakeland Hawthorne Waldwick game against Tenafly Cresco Leonia. No, everything else is final but that game. All right. But no score for that one. But that's okay. All right. We will see you. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody, and enjoy your Big North hockey, and get ready for next week as we zip down the line towards the postseason.